Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this video is part of the homemade bow shuriken or DIY throwing spike playlist. And in line with the channel's theme, I will explain and probably over explain everything, but please remember I am making these videos for the beginners, those who are just starting out either in knife and implement throwing or making things for their own. Okay, so most of the things I will say here is common sense and common knowledge among those who are actually already well into the DIY world. Okay, but first and foremost, if you do not know how to use power tools, hand tools and shop equipment, this is not the channel to learn from. And please do not learn from social media. Learn from proper, get some proper tuition on the topic, on the subject. Okay, and also please follow your countries or states or wherever you live. Follow the required health and safety laws and make sure you have the appropriate insurances and follow all the bylaws and whatever else you may need to. Okay, that is all on you. Okay, now that's out of the way. Safeties first. So these safeties, safety glasses, hearing protection, these two is a must. Or in my opinion, it is a must. You may want to get a dust mask if you're going to do lots of grinding, and maybe a pair of gloves. But don't get this pair of gloves or these types. Get proper leather gloves. Sometimes they call them riggers or rigging gloves. These types are good for painting and stuff, but not really good for grinding work. Okay. Now, while we're talking about safeties, if you're going to use an angle grinder, I recommend not to remove the safety guard. This is the safety guard. So many people removing them because whatever reason. Sorry, I am completely against it. Also, if you're using a bench grinder like this, a couple of things: make sure it's secure to your bench. I mean, it's probably not the best example using two G-clamps, but it is tight enough that it moves with the bench. Now this is not my grinder, so I kind of just temporarily secured it, but it is tight. Okay, probably drill it to the bench. Now, I have seen videos where people removing the tool rest from the bench grinder and part of the safety guards, and then they complain that the piece that they're grinding is getting kicked back into their face or getting sucked into the other part of the left on guardings. Well, I'm going to say surprise, surprise. If you remove safeties from your machinery, well, you will pay the price sooner or later. Okay, don't be silly. Now, on the same topic of being silly, if you're using an angle grinder and you run out of hands, okay, please don't do like many people try, using a clamp of some sort to clamp an angle grinder to a flat bench, because an angle grinder is full of round surfaces. It will not be stable. It will vibrate and shake itself loose, and then you have a very dangerous situation. Okay, if you run out of hands, use a vise, put your work in a vise or clamp it to your bench, or get somebody to hold the angle grinder for you while you're running your workpiece. All of those are great ideas. Don't just try to be following social media sensations. Some of those videos are heart-stoppingly silly. Okay, now tool list, and this is by far, I'm trying to make this a very complete tool list, and you don't need to rush out and buy every tool on this list. Okay, as we're going to talk about stuff, you realize that you can mix and match, depends on your needs. Okay, you need a measuring stick. Okay, I prefer the one with metric on one side and imperial on the other side, because in knife throwing we kind of switch between the measurements, so that just makes it easier for me. Okay, now you need something to mark with, a thin or a thick permanent marker. I will explain both of them, why are they good. Now, as I mentioned, a vise is even a small one like this, I mean, or clamps to secure your workpiece. Now, a hammer to hit with, hammer or hatchet, whatever, something to hit with. Now, a hacksaw can be useful, just like file. You don't need to have the professional shop file. I mean, this is a smooth, goes just for finishing work, but you might want to use a bastard and the smooth. Okay, but you can just use some small deburring files, which is basically just taking the burrs off. Okay, and if you're using the smooth out of this, then you don't need sandpaper. Now, I recommend at least, or starting from somewhere, either 80 grit, or I don't know where the other one is, up to like 180, actually maybe 120 grit. Okay, those two are really good to taking the burrs off your implements. Now, if you want to go into fine details, then get some emery cloth, somewhere around the 400 or 600 grit. Okay, just to really smooth out the finished surface. Okay, now you can actually make bow shurikens or throwing spikes just with what I just explained here. Actually, I forgot, sorry, you need a scriber, but this is just basically a very pointy stick, so you can actually make one of these out of a nail, and maybe a old wood chisel, but you can also use a old screwdriver that you don't like anymore, or you're going to turn it into a project anyway, so you don't mind the handle. Okay, these two items also very handy. So you can actually make a throwing spike with just hand tools, but it will require a fair bit of effort, so I recommend against it. Now, and the other reason I recommend against it, because a corded angle grinder, this is like a serious brand name of, I think it's Kawasaki. Okay, my wife got this for me out of one of those brochures when you collect points at the grocery shop. Okay, a supermarket. So like really, it's a basically a no brand. Okay, they will be just fine. You don't need to get yourself, not even Ryobi brand. Okay, and yes, I still use corded ones. I am old school, and besides, this one's about 20 years old and still working fine. So for DIY things, this is perfect, right? If you get an angle grinder, get yourself some cut-off wheels. Then suddenly your hacksaws may not be needed, and some grinding wheels. Okay. Now for finer works, flap wheels. It's called a flap disc. Okay, so this one is not for this grinder, but don't worry about that just yet. These are basically a whole bunch of sandpapers glued together. Okay. Now, if you invest a little bit more, you get yourself a bench grinder, or you have a friend who has one, and then you go there to work on your project. Or you have a good friend who you can borrow one for making the video. Okay. Now, they are great. Obviously, you need to know how to use them. And then the best thing ever is a bench mounted belt sander, but of course I don't have one of those. So yeah, what else I wanted to say? So you don't need a bench grinder and a angle grinder, one or the other. Okay, again, a bench grinder will make things easier. Now, last but not least, a battery drill. Okay, so this is a drill. This is not an impact drill. This is a battery drill. If you have a variable speed one, that's even better. And a big, I call this a big chuck because that can take up to 13 millimeter drill bits. Okay. Now, what is this? As it is, it's what I call as a poor man's lathe. Okay, because even if it's like a workpiece, this throwing spike is made out of a automotive pry bar, and it's got 4 sides. The chuck has 3 jaws, but if you play with it enough, you can actually set it up. I just need to have the arm long enough that when it turns, it is relatively centric. Okay, yes, it has a little bit of kick in it, but by the time you finish grinding, I mean, this is the finished product, you won't notice it. Okay, so the way you use this idea is when you have a bench grinder or bench mounted belt sander, use one hand to drive the drill, and the other hand, I just need a, the other hand is to stabilize the workpiece about here. And because as you're driving it slowly, don't drive it fast, drive it slowly, then you can stabilize it and it will be working just fine. Yes, the product is not going to be perfect, but it will stick. Okay, so this is the safety and the tool list, and I'm going to come back in the next video right now with the grinding tips that I have discovered over the years, just because I don't want the video to drag on for too long. Okay, any questions, please write in the comments, and I shall do my best to answer it. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.